Hello, I'm here with John Godber. John, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, very good. Thank you.
And we're here in. If we just describe this particular place where we're actually sat, it's actually a very special place. It's Wakefield Theatre Royal and Opera House, and it's on your doorstep in a sense.
Yeah, well, yeah, not quite as near as Hull Truck, but it's where I'm. I remember this place when it was a bingo hall, and I've had a relationship with this venue for a long time, and for me, it's a perfect matching theatre for plays. It's about the right size, 500 seats, and it's a lovely theatre.
And it begs the question, John, how did you get interested in theatre? I mean, we're sat here on the third row of Wakefield Theatre Royal and Opera House in the stalls. How did you become interested in this kind of this art form?
Crikey, that's going back. I think it all started in Blackpool. Years and years ago, my mum and dad took me to the Winter Gardens to see some dancing girls, and I was probably about 7. And I got so caught up in the girls dancing. I mean, probably for obvious reasons. That I wanted to go back the next night, and then I wanted to go back the next night. There was something very, very empathetic about watching this dance and the freedom of the dance. That's my first real memory of watching live performance. And then during school, my school life, I got interested I did drama in school. I played a lot of sport as well, so I always had the kind of dilemma of, did I want to be a sportsman, because I was quite a good footballer as a young kid, or did I want to be an actor? And I could make people laugh. And then a number of things happened. I was beaten up by a guy who was an amateur boxing champion, a light heavyweight champion of Great Britain, beat me up. And then a fortnight later his dad strangled him and killed him. That kind of changed my life, because I then started weightlifting, which is kind of odd thing for somebody who wanted to be a footballer did. And I got bigger and bigger, and I could no longer play football. Ended up playing rugby, but I still had this fascination with literature, and in particular plays. So I did drama at school. I did drama at A-level. I was eating plays as a kid, but plays that meant something to me. I mean, lots of things I saw early on where I thought that's a lot of people making remarks that don't mean anything to my life. And then, went to Breton to train to be a drama teacher. And still had that real desire to communicate the importance and the significance of theatre and stroke literature and stroke culture.
And I suppose at that time, could you say you were bullied at school? Do you think is that fair to say? And you kind of, I mean, you've talked in the past about you quite have a good sense of humour and you're good at making people laugh at school. Is all that part and parcel of the same sort of idea of trying to fit in and making people laugh?
I wouldn't like to say that I was bullied in the sense that it ruined my life, but I think I was bullied in the way that we were all, we are all at some stage bullied. I think early on when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I didn't ever see myself as being physically, one to throw my weight about. I always felt quite sensitive. And even, what's been fascinating for me is I always felt like a square peg in a round hole. When I was at school and I liked doing plays, that was a bit odd. Then when I went to Breton and I'd started weightlifting. Well, that was a bit odd to the Breton students. That he was a guy who was. In some people used to say to me, "Are you here on the bricklaying course?" And I couldn't get on the bricklaying course. I fortunately got on the drama course. And there is also, but that is about a stereotype of what a drama student is and what they look like, what they sound like, and what they're. I suppose I've always had and it's still there now. I still have a desire to communicate stories about ordinary street level life, if you like, to a wider audience. And some people might say that's an unsophisticated philosophy, but I'd challenge that.
And also, I also heard you talk about going to see Kez. I think your teacher, was he a maths teacher? I think he took you to go and see Kez at local local cinema. And do you think perhaps an awareness that people are interested in people like yourself from that sort of background? Do you think that had an effect? The fact that Hollywood came to Barnsley and Doncaster?
Yeah, I remember that experience really, really, really clearly. It was at Doncaster Government or Odeon, and we went to Albert Sawyer. My maths teacher took us to see this new film called Kes, and I'd never seen a film before with kids with Yorkshire accents, and Colin Welland was there, and Brian Glover was there, who I later worked with, and the Barry Hines, who I thought was fantastic, was there, and that that did have a major effect, because suddenly I'm thinking, wow, you can make art or narratives, whether film or theatre, in a Yorkshire accent, and that then segued into reading David Story plays and reading David Rudkin plays and John Arden plays and so on and so forth. That had a big influence, yeah.
So you have very much from early on a sense of identity of being from Yorkshire, and Yorkshire's one of those places. I'm from Lancashire, and boo hiss, but it's always that idea of identity that we've seen in your work over the years, and quite a lot of people refer to you as a northern playwright. And do you think that's fair or unfair to call you a northern playwright? Because it seems to give you a tag that other playwrights don't get.
Yeah, Alan Bennett never gets that. He's from Leeds. And, Alan Ayckbourn's lived in Yorkshire longer than, no, not quite as long as me, but quite some time. But he never gets that. It's interesting because my MA thesis was actually on John Arden and David Story, North Yorkshire playwrights. Interestingly with that, Arden had followed a Brechtian view and David Story with much more Chekhovian, naturalistic work. What I think's happened over time is that my relationship with Hull Truck and the distinct constituency in Hull has spoken directly to that constituency. So people therefore think, everything you write is about that city, for example. There is no doubt about it that I think had I left teaching and gone south, I would have been writing different plays, because I think the input would have been very different. Whether or not those plays would have been, shorter, longer, squarer, or more oblong, I don't know. But my experiences of a more kind of metropolitan life, for example, had I gone to London, would have impacted on me. I've always responded against unfairness in society, and I've always been a real had sympathy with the underdog. Now, whether or not that would have been more in focus had I gone to London, who's to say? And
the fact again, it's been documented about you failing your 11 plus. And does that all fit in with that? If you passed the 11 plus, would you perhaps turn out different in some way? I think if I had passed my 11 plus, I'd have been a solicitor, and we wouldn't have been sat having this conversation. So I think, the 11 plus is great in the sense that I failed it and went to comprehensive school, and everybody at comprehensive school had to do drama at the school I went to. And it's significant also that we sat in Wakefield, because Bretton Hall College was established by Sir Alec Clegg, whose whole kind of notion was learning and writing through experience. Now he was education officer for Wakefield all through the development of Bretton, and that then segued into the building of Minthorpe High School, the comprehensive school I went to and taught at, and that was about how the arts are at the centre of a curriculum. They're not at the edges of a curriculum. They are people finding out how they feel about the world by expressing how they feel about the world. That's certainly been something that I've revisited personally, just to think, well, why am I doing this? And so the 11 plus, that was a big statement in terms of outsidership, if you like. That was, you're not part of the traditional route. And I think also doing things like, I think you're probably aware that when I went for the interview at Hull Truck, Danny Boyle was the guy in front of me, and he'd apparently said if he got that job at Hull, he'd do a play about fishing. Well, he'd thought that on the train from Doncaster to Hull. I said I'd write a play about rugby, because obviously I was coming from that kind of background, and the play took off, and so on and so forth. And what I tried to do was to re-stimulate the same audience. I mean, bear in mind, I think what is fascinating is that, the genesis of my relationship with Hull Truck was predicated mostly on keeping the company going. So consequently, my own particular,
penchant for certain German plays and the expressionists had to be subjugated in order to pull an audience into Spring Street Theatre. So, you don't have to be a brain surgeon to work out that Shakers and Teachers and Up and Under, and Blood, Sweat and Tears and On the Piece, and those plays were about trying to draw the ducks off the water to come to that studio theatre. And over 26 years, my word, those plays certainly earned their corn, if you like, because they did. They created a huge critical mass of people who would come out to see the next, if you like, shamanistic response to that region where I lived and they lived, and what I was saying about my life and their life in a truly shared experience. I don't, frankly, see that being much different to what Willie Russell did over time with Educating Rita and Stags and Ends and Blood Brothers, and there was I remember there was a real school at the Everyman in the 70s, with Bill Morrison and Chris Bond and Bleasdale and Willie Russell were writing plays, and Jimmy McGovern doing it now on telly, writing plays about a part of the world. I suppose the difference for me is that I was coming at these plays with a very deep academic knowledge, if you like, and wanted to make plays that were physical rather than, if you like, naturalistic. And I'm flipping back to something, and it's easy to be a kind of social psychologist at these times, but I'm wondering whether or not I wrote Bouncers and Up and Under to prove to my mates, one of whom was a professional boxer, one of whom happened to be the British powerlifting champion at the time, that I wasn't a wuss. There was something about me saying, listen, I know what you think about plays, lads, but these plays are not like sitting down around the fireside making smart remarks. These are physical plays, in-your-face theatre, and you have to accept that the actors are working very, very hard in order to make those plays work. Now, quite honestly, I can't remember thinking that at the time, but it's a very nice peg to hang a philosophy on.